Hi, everyone. We're delighted to welcome you back to our session two on our Farm Well Hub Health and Wellbeing series of webinars. And we're turning the tables a wee bit this week. I'm doing the introductions to our Anne-Marie, who's the project manager for the project. So Anne-Marie is as our host on this session. She brings, obviously, and you'll see why I'm saying this, a unique blend of industry experience and personal experience at the Farmwell Hub's well-being. Um, Anne-Marie is familiar with the farming community, having been, like myself, well, I wasn't quite reared in it, but married into it, working in the farm and in the mental health sector to over a decade. And no more than ourselves and the team involved in this, we do get and we do understand the challenges faced by farmers. And this is, the building platform of the Farm Well Hub, and in particular these wellness series. And I suppose when we were chatting before we started, the expression "a healthy mind and a healthy body" came to mind. And last week we looked at what does a healthy mind look like. Today, Anne-Marie is going to take us through how we can support ourselves, because what we do know is farming is more than a job. It's a lifestyle that demands physical strength, mental clarity, and emotional resilience. The challenges, and we looked at them last week. And what's really important, and our message here this morning in this session is, prioritizing our well-being through healthy habits isn't just about longevity, it's about sustaining the farm, the family, and the community. So, again, it's to remind you that our program is based on the ISMA well-being um, lecture series, and it's evidence based, and and we'll put up lots of interesting links for you as we go along. So what, just kind of put it into perspective, this session, what we're looking at is, and we can pick out all the different messages on that circle. A healthy balanced diet, healthy weight for your age and height, not smoking or taking recreational drugs, because these, we know they're part of reaction to managing stress. Look, can we overemphasize the importance of a good quality night's sleep? It often comes up in workshops, getting that night's sleep, and we know farmers cannot just have almost guaranteed a good night's sleep because they have to get out calving or mare foaling or lambs, and it's recognizing that. Review caffeine and alcohol intake. And another important point is, do you make time for relaxation and exercise and good general fitness? And somebody once said to me, like, farmers want to get into fitness and aren't they on their feet all day? But the thing is, that is their way of life, to be on the move. But when we take time out to look after our own personal fitness, it's a different process, it's a different mindset. And I'm going to hand over now to Anne-Marie to bring us through this session, because Anne-Marie, as I've said, has a lot of experience in this area in terms of coaching and personal experience in the importance of exercise and well-being. So Anne-Marie, I'm happy to hand over to you.
Thanks, Finola. I'm delighted to be here for our second session. Much more comfort zone for me. I've worked in this industry for 25 years. I'm a qualified nutritionist, and as Finola said, a background in coaching as well. In my previous life, I studied sports science a long, long time ago. I think the science has changed since, but all the kind of basics do stay the same over the years. As Finola said, we're looking at lifestyle today, and we'll be looking in depth in more areas than others, because we could be here for a month talking about each individual pillar of well-being, I suppose. I'm going to pick out a couple that maybe there isn't as much information out there, and then I'll direct you to some other useful resources for other pillars of well-being that would be really important to kind of have an overall balanced lifestyle. Finola, please pop in at any time to relate it back in around the farming community, as you are very much living and breathing that at the minute. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pop in straight away, because just to share with you and our audience, I listened into your session last autumn, and I changed my diet completely. And the one biggest thing I did change, Anne Marie, thanks to you highlighting it, have a decent breakfast in the morning. So I never hardly ever start my day without a bowl of muesli and a boiled egg and a cup of coffee, maybe, or a glass of water. So big improvement for me and my energy levels.
But
So
delighted to hear you took
yeah, yeah,
some pointers from the last session. Okay,
yeah,
so this is focused on lifestyle on and off the farm. So it's really important, I suppose, to look after yourself what during work, but very much so after work as well. I really love this concept. It kind of reminds me of the farm as well, being the shed. This is actually backed in evidence, and there is a book out there called "How's Your Shed?" So I've stolen the concept. But it stands for sleep, hydration, exercise, and diet. And basically, what we would say is if we're looking after these pillars of health, that it's a really good foundation for you, the farmer, or the farmer, the farm family, the farmer's partner, and this really isn't just for farmers, it is for the rural community, the farming families, and extended. It applies to everybody really, and we'll just talk more directly probably to the farmer and the direct farm family today. Um, so, in saying that, if we look after those pillars of physical health, in turn, it will actually look after your mental health as well. So, I've just added that part in there in terms of asking yourself, okay, so how is my shed? Am I sleeping well? Am I hydrating? Am I doing that bit of exercise? And how is my diet? But it's really, really also important not just ask yourself about your physical health, but how is my head? How am I feeling mentally, as well, and how is my emotions, and how do I cope with that? So to kind of give a bit of a background or a starting point to why we're doing this. And it's all really to do with your stress levels. And I know Finola is going to cover some of this in other sessions and has covered stress in the last session as well. But just I found this really useful, and I use it with my individual clients just to kind of have it as a starting point, and where we start to feel stress and why we start to feel stress and what we do on a daily basis affects our stress levels. And also just to point out that stress is a good thing. If we didn't have a certain amount of stress in our lives, we wouldn't actually do anything. And so it's often really a negative, thought or talked about as a negative thing, but actually we do need a certain amount of stress to get us going, I guess. So if I was to put this in the context, to use an example and put it into the context of the farmer, um, perhaps around let's say your well-being. Okay, since we're talking about well-being today. So your comfort zone, the farmer, the farm family, the kids, the wives, the husbands, the partners, whoever else is not actually directly farming as well. But so if we look at the comfort zone here, this is a place where you feel really safe and in control. And so if it's not something that you're really, really focusing on, is like your well-being around sleep and hydration, exercise, diet, and you don't see it as important, you're probably sitting in that comfort zone. And hopefully after today, you'll see that it is really important if you don't already. Um, and what basically people start to feel very stagnant in that zone, and it really does kind of start to affect your mental health as well if we're not looking at kind of the physical elements of our well-being as well. So when we do decide, okay, that was I listened to Anne-Marie on that call now, and I think I'm going to maybe take on a bit of exercise or change my diet or really tackle something, we step into a thing called the fear zone. And the fear zone is where you might lack confidence, maybe to join a new club or go to a gym. And it's absolutely, you don't need to be joining any of those things either. But the fear zone is when you don't, it's the unknown, it's not the place that you know to be comfortable. So we get affected by other people's opinions. If let's, for instance, say we were going to join a new running club or a gym or whatever, we'd be worried about what people are thinking. That's a really relevant zone, and it's a real blocker for people to step into the next part of your well-being journey, for instance. So they say feel the fear and do it anyway. So my advice is step out of that comfort zone and straight into the learning zone. It will feel scary and it will feel uncomfortable. But once you get in there and you start kind of putting a routine together for your couch to 5K, or you decide I'm going to, start walking 3 mornings a week, and then you start to kind of build on that, and then you're extending that. So that this comfort zone here then becomes a much, much bigger place. And then you get into the growth zone where you can kind of your well-being habits become habit, becomes the norm. It's a really big comfort zone. I was only saying to Finola before the call there, she was just asking me about my how do I look after my well-being, and I just have non-negotiables. But those non-negotiables, when I started out with them, were very. It was in a. I wasn't doing them, and I was in a comfort zone. It took a while for me to get into that, but a non-negotiable for me was to get up at a certain hour in the morning and get my 30 minutes of exercise done at a minimum. So that zone now for me is very comfortable. That just happens. It's like I get up in the morning, I eat my breakfast, and I do my exercise. So I think just to point that out to people, that it's not always we see people in all these kind of wellness influencers, and it's such a noisy space, and just to really acknowledge that as well. You don't need to be booking into the latest plunge pool and sauna and to be well and to practice well-being at all. And it's about just small little steps that you can take to improve on your well-being. But yeah, when we start out, it is uncomfortable, and it is sometimes can feel scary, and I don't want to do it. And you try it once, you didn't like it, and you just didn't go back. But maybe just to keep going and pushing yourself until you do get to that more comfortable place. Just to point out chronic stress as well. So it is a really good idea to push ourselves, and it is a really good idea to become into that growth zone. But when we do it for too long, we can come into a place called a chronic stress zone, and we do not want to stay in there for a long time. What it is okay is to take a rest and go back into your comfort zone every so often, just to take that rest. What we don't want to do is to end up in the chronic zone, stress zone for a long period of time. If you take the elastic band as an example, okay, so an elastic band just sitting on the table, not doing anything, that's your comfort zone. It's not doing anything. It gets quite static. It's useless. It's not. It actually then starts to break because it gets really dry and not very elasticy. So if you pull the elastic band, it's in use. So you're in the learning zone, you're in the growth zone, and it's in use. But if you pull it and that's a really good place, and that's why we use an elastic band, just to stretch it to a certain point. But if you stretch it too far, the elastic band will break, and that is an analogy, I suppose, of burnout. Really, if you pull the elastic band for too long, or if you stay in that really, really stressful zone, and that doesn't just go to you looking after taking on a couch to 5K. That goes right into the heart of your farming, within the winter, when you do come across all those stressful places and zones, and just to really be mindful of that elastic band, that you don't stretch it too far, because it breaks, and that leads to that chronic burnout. So just to identify what does chronic stress look like, it looks like some of these things over a long period of time. Okay, so obviously you can have the odd night of poor sleep, or the odd, day where you feel exhausted. But when it's long term, and you're experiencing some of these, that can be signs of chronic stress. And like I said, chronic stress will lead to that kind of burnout zone, which we don't want to get to. The really exciting thing is, and that's just a little summary of the zones there. So the comfort zones, where you're feeling safe but very stagnant, so you're quite bored, The fear zone is where you start to face those challenges, and I love that one. When I never understood the saying up until a couple of years ago, feel the fear and do it anyway. Now I understand it. So you try to jump over the fear zone into the learning zone so you can actually push on and do the things you want to do. Learning zones where you build those skills, growth zone is where you reach that full potential, and then that's the chronic stress zone is the one we really want to avoid. And the really exciting thing is if we put some of those well-being pillars into place, we can avoid those that chronic stress and that burnout phase. And it's just about looking after some just putting an emphasis on some of those things. And, it's not that you have to put an emphasis on them all the time, but it's really, really brilliant to have some of this stuff in your toolbox to pull out when you're feeling that pressure, feeling that what will I do to bring myself back to that really healthy place of learning and growth as opposed to chronic stress. So sleep is it's a huge one, and it's probably even though I am a nutritionist and that's my day to day, my bread and butter. Sleep is probably the most important thing that you could look after. And I know I acknowledge that sleep isn't easy for everybody, and I suppose that's why I wanted to bring it up and maybe look at some strategies around sleep. So why is it important? Very quickly, it clears your thoughts, it clears out toxins, and then if we get a chance to clear out toxins, that stops disease from forming. There is a huge amount of research out there. So when we sleep, we need that 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I know that that is not always possible or realistic, but that's kind of the ideal, that 7 to 9 hour window. And the reason why is because when we sleep, our body does certain things that it won't do otherwise. We must be sleeping to do it. So one of the really important things would be the clearing out of toxins. So we take in toxins physically and mentally every day. And when we sleep at night, our body gets a chance to clear out those toxins. When we don't sleep, our body holds them and builds them up. And actually, that is a contributor towards that long-term disease that we see people developing over time. Again, just to go back to the thoughts as well. So you've so much going on psychologically as well during the day between, your work, your family, your personal. You've so many things that filing. There's all these filing cabinets open with all this information going in. I just see like the M50 and the red cow roundabout going on in your head. And when we don't sleep, those thoughts don't get a chance to slow down, get put back into the filing cabinet and put back into your head and stay and put away. When we don't sleep those full hours, we don't get a chance to clear those thoughts. So it's just thoughts building up and thoughts on top of thoughts then and through the night and then into the next day. There is a lot of scientific jargon around that, which I wouldn't go into, but that's kind of the layman's term of it. That it is so important that we do allow a chance for the filing cabinet to close at night and for it to clean itself up and start with a fresh kind of desk in the morning. So really important for replenishing hormones as well. So your satiating hormone, your sex hormone, your growth hormone, skin health, and the distribution of vitamins and minerals. So it does relate to your physical health as well, because your satiating hormone is the hormone that helps you to feel fuller for longer. And if you don't replenish that hormone, you are automatically, number one, you're tireder the next day if you don't get proper sleep. But number two, you don't have that hormone replenished. So you automatically turn to overeating. And actually that's the link between sleep and overweight, developing overweight and obesity. Again, your sex hormone, growth hormone is also related to your ability to build muscle as well. And then there's loads more things that happen while we sleep as well. So they're all really good reasons to try and improve on your sleep quality. So short-term effects are really obvious ones. Okay, so you're going to be tired, irritable, and lacking concentration, and then reduce problem solving. Medium term, increased stress levels. So getting towards that chronic stress zone, which we really don't want to be in long term. Again, I said about the weight gain, the satiating hormone doesn't get a chance to replenish itself, so we overeat. And then when we're tired, we also overeat, so we have more energy to do that full day's physical work on the farm. And then a much higher risk of accidents. It has been researched as well, the medium term effects, which is obviously something that needs to be avoided. And, having that full concentration whilst using those working with livestock and machinery on a daily basis. And then long-term effects, like I said, it's directly related to disease and particularly heart disease, because of it's related to overweightness and the build-up of disease. Various other health issues, mental health issues, because we don't get a chance to clear out our thoughts, and then those thoughts build up and build up. And particularly then, if we're having a stressful day, it's negative thoughts building up on top of each other. We're not getting a chance to clear them out. And then a compromised immune system, which really means um, illnesses propping up all the time and not feeling well as a result. So there's two reasons why we don't sleep well. One is poor sleep hygiene, and that's one that we can control. And then the other one would be medical conditions. So poor sleep hygiene could be things like having a high caffeine diet, high caffeine intake during the day, high sugar intake during the day, particularly caffeine and sugar late at night would be really would lead to poor sleep hygiene on screens late at night, that blue screen. They would recommend, I'll go through a recommendation slide as well. Um, and then maybe not having a routine with your sleep, say going to bed and getting up at the same time every day would be recommended. Not always possible, of course, depending on the time of season and the type of farming you're doing as well. And then medical conditions, which you would need to seek the guidance of your GP or a medical professional, would be like insomnia, restless leg syndrome, and there's a few others as well. So that would be where you wouldn't be able to control that yourself. You would need to speak to a GP. So if you feel like, you've after this session and you're going to tackle your sleep and you feel like you have looked at sleep hygiene, and that's not working, maybe it would be time to seek professional help. So, just a very quick one on caffeine and its impact. Caffeine is great. I couldn't live without it, to be honest. However, caffeine in large amounts and then at the wrong time of the day can be actually detrimental to your sleep anyway. So, it has many, many health benefits. Caffeine sometimes can get a bad rap. Oh, sorry, I'll go back there. It can get a bad rap, but actually, caffeine has loads of other health benefits. It's really good for other than keeping us alive and kind of alert. It has other health benefits that we can use as well. But caffeine in too much quantity is not good. So quantity and timing is really important. So if we're to talk about coffee, it would be 2 cups of coffee before 2 o'clock in the day. Anything kind of after 2 o'clock is going to stay in our system late into the night, 11, 12, and it's going to keep our nervous system awake, which we don't want. And you don't just find caffeine, of course, in coffee. You find it in energy drinks. You find it in fizzy drinks. Then you're talking about sugar and caffeine all mixed in together. So avoiding them as well would be really important late at night, and using them as a treat rather than an everyday hydration method would be the advice. And then yeah, so quantity and timing. Then maybe in the afternoon you do like a hot cup. You can always switch to decaffeinated coffee or tea. I've switched to the decaffeinated tea, and honestly I feel like it tastes the same. Although my daughter would say differently, if she sees me taking the decaf out of the box, but when she doesn't know, she doesn't realise. And then herbal teas, if that's your thing as well. And they've very little caffeine in them. And so I talked about the link between overeating and sleep. So yeah, it's that satiating hormone, that your hunger hormone doesn't get a chance, and then we crave those sugary and higher fat foods for energy when we're tired as well. And so just aiming to get that consistent sleep. So practical advice and the way we can clean up our sleep hygiene. And like I said, if we do all of these things and it doesn't help, it's probably time to seek some professional help from your GP, which they can really give some great advice or refer you on for some more tests. So 7 to 9 hours, I would definitely, personally, I'm on the higher end of it. I really try to get my 9 hours, but if my sleep hygiene isn't good, I will not get 9 hours because you kind of have to be disciplined. But then after a while, it just becomes a little bit more normal. So quantity and timing of caffeine is important. Avoiding those sugary foods later at night and avoiding them. Um, as your bulk kind of dietary need. So incorporating other pillars like hydration, exercise, and diet into your daily routine will help your sleep as well. And creating that bedtime routine, staying up or going to bed and getting up at the same time. Totally understand it's not always possible. Avoiding screens, keeping your room cool and dark, especially not so much at the minute, but during the summer I felt it was really heavy and warm at night time. So that can really have an effect on your sleep as well. And then trying some relaxation techniques. There's loads of them out there. And this is one I just absolutely love because when time is not of the essence, this one always works. I would use it in particular when my head starts racing and my heart starts racing, the two. It can happen from time to time when I'm delivering sessions like this. Um, so just before I would take time just to do that. It's called box breathing. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold again. And you do that 4 times. So it's box breathing. What it does, it slows down your heart rate and it slows down, it brings everything, all your focus becomes on your breathing. And then all that erratic kind of panicky feeling subsides a bit. I don't use it all the time, but by God, when I need it, this comes out of the toolbox and it is really useful. So I would recommend if it's something that you get quite worked up or nervous, especially if you're going into like high pressure situations, this is really, really good. Um, and it can be done anywhere. So just looking at hydration as well, as part of the pillar, one of the pillars that we will go into more detail on. How are we fixed on time there, Finola? Actually, uh,
We're going fine because what you're saying is so very, very important, and it's all about balance. And I know from our experience in chatting that we appreciate there will be times in the year that it might be difficult to have that sleeping pattern, but what's important is to have a good sleeping pattern, have all that we've been looking at, because it's really sound advice to put that in place when
mm,
you're not in that critical where 24/7 is the norm for X amount of weeks in the season. Yeah, we're
yeah,
very appreciative of that. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And actually, sometimes there's no need to even focus on any of those points that they could just come very naturally. It's nearly almost when we really need it that this is another tool for our toolbox that we can go, okay, actually, I remember that I can do this, this, and this just to improve my quality of sleep. Um, just a little bit on hydration. We are actually made up of 60% of water. So it water is really, really important and it supports nearly every function in our body, in our whole human being. We mistake dehydration for so many things: tiredness, hunger, stress, irritability. You actually could just be dehydration. And if you aren't consistently drinking water throughout the day, that's probably one of the things that one of the single most easiest things you can do to improve your well-being would be just start drinking water. And yes, there's recommendations, but if you're drinking no water and you start with drinking 1 or 2 glasses of water a day, that's 200% improvement. So don't mind about recommendations. I will go through them and you can work to getting to them, but that's kind of the message I would like to portray is just start somewhere and do something small. It's not about trying to um reach all those new recommendations and drinking this and eating that and booking into this sauna and plunge pool. It's just about doing the smaller things in just incremental changes over time, and you will start to see a difference. So, just some of the effects of dehydration, and I know people will resonate with these: headaches, dizziness, cramps, heart rate, and then increased heart rate. They're physical ones. Mental ones would be poor focus and that irritability. We spoke about stress as well, and sometimes it's not actual, the obvious things that make us really stressed. It can be as little as being dehydrated that can make us become, and our heart becomes under stress. So then we start to feel stressed. Everything starts to feel more difficult, and actually, drinking some water could be a big game changer. So things just feel more challenging in general. Um, I love this. Humans and crops react very similarly to water or lack of. So, I know as farmers, you wouldn't leave your animals without water because you know that that would be really dangerous. Nor would you leave your crops without water because that would lead in disaster. And we are the same. We are the exact same. So water yourself as you do your livestock and your plants. So just some strategies. Like I said, the recommendations around 2 liters, it's different for everybody. But if you are starting at a zero water intake point, if you have one glass of water today, you're improving all the time. So yeah, it would be good to get up because then farmers generally are much more physical. They will sweat more. They need more water to replenish that loss of sweat. And so just drinking throughout the day. And then there are some more hydrating foods that are quite nice as well and have lots of vitamins and minerals like melons and oranges. They keep us more hydrated as well than other foods. And if you're really, really into it, you can have a hydration tracker. This sometimes can help to build habits, but it's not for everyone. And it's actually more, I would say, if you were sitting at a desk, which I'm assuming most farmers are not sitting at desks. That's just a resource and it'll be up on the website. But then again, it is for families as well who may be doing the office side of things. So very quickly on to exercise because we could stay talking about all of those topics for a very long time. So there's loads and loads of benefits to exercise, and to be fair, farmers typically are getting a lot more exercise than the today's workers who are sitting at desks and offices, 7, 8 hours a day, and then sitting in traffic for another 2 or 3 hours a day. So, to be fair, farmers probably are getting more exercise. I do know that there's a lot more machinery at play now as well. So, if you're not getting that as much exercise as you'd like to or are used to, maybe it's something that you considered. And actually, exercise isn't just good physically, it's so important mentally. It allows us, you can see here, it allows us for connection, it allows us to beat some other bad habits, perhaps, if you were trying to kick some of those other pillars like not smoking and alcohol, if there was an issue with that and you needed to cut down, exercise can be a really good replacement. Also is really good for sleep quality as well and self-esteem, loads and loads. And then you have all the physical ones as well, all your kind of organ functions, having a healthy weight, which is really important as well, especially when you're trying to, physically work up to, as Finola says, sometimes 24 hours a day. And then it promotes all sorts of really useful physical benefits as well. So there's different types of training too. In particular, I've mentioned resistance training, which is really important for building muscle. Um, which again, I understand farmers and are physically working, so you will be naturally keeping muscle on your body. Most farmers, not all farmers, are physically working, and then farm families, and it would be useful for everybody to engage in resistance training and then aerobic training as well. I see we have a little spelling error here. So that would be also important to keep for your heart health and organ health. But what is the most important is to find something that is enjoyable and meaningful to you. And it's not about, so yes, you may be physically active throughout the day, but actually if you find something that you really enjoy and you can connect with others and you can break maybe isolation, maybe you haven't seen somebody you may be exercising all day, but it's a really great chance to join something bigger and to connect and to break that isolation as well, on top of all the other um, benefits to engaging in exercise. So just really quickly, I know we're running out of time. To run over the nutrition side of things as well. So nutrition is complex and confusing, and again, it is such a noisy space out there. And I would be one for bringing it right back to basics, to the basic food, and not having to go to the moon to buy our ingredients, which seems to be becoming a trend of all these new fancy foods and foods that are being developed in labs. So really, what we want to do is bring our food back to the basics. It is essential. It's essential that we eat. So we might as well do it well and go back to basics and put the stuff into our bodies that we need on a daily basis. Um, so there's nutrition for so many different things, and what I would like everyone to focus on is just getting the basics right, and not, you can talk about nutrition for weight gain, weight loss, nice hair, nice skin. We're just going to look at just getting back to the basics, and just ask yourself, am I eating the right foods? Am I eating enough food? Or is the food that I'm eating, is it coming from natural sources, or am I more and more looking towards that process industry? And that's a really important question. Like as a basic really is to look at what is the quality of food that I am eating. Is it real food? Because, like I said, the industry is so noisy with all these really fancy and special products that are being put out there. Am I eating a variety of foods? So variety will give us vitamins and minerals and cut out the need for all those fancy supplements that we're being shoved in front of us as well. And there may be no need. In some instances, there are need for supplements, but actually, if we have a balanced and varied diet with lots of color in our diet, we will be almost guaranteed to be getting a really good variety of vitamins and minerals. And then just to take something, even if it's reassurance, you may be doing loads and loads of really good stuff. And I think where an industry is so noisy, you can get actually confused. Am I doing the right thing? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I should be doing that. I would say take a reassurance. If you're eating natural foods mostly on a daily basis, you're doing the right thing. So looking at carbohydrates very quickly is the fuel we put into our body. It's the petrol or diesel we need inside our body to do our daily tasks. And these are the carbohydrates. So that I would recommend, not because I like them, but because they are slow release energy. So they'll give us slow, steady release throughout the day. We can go about our daily physical tasks, physical and mental. You need food for your mental capacity as well. So they're all good choices. They're not the only choices. They're the amount I could fit on the page. And then we take in protein then as well, which is protein is the thing that will make us feel full, and it will help us build muscle. It is really, really important for us to keep muscle on our body, especially as we get older, because as we get older, we naturally lose muscle off the body. However, if we have a really good balanced diet with a small bit of exercise, we can keep that muscle on our body, and we slow down that aging process where you get weaker and more frail and less flexible, and your mobility starts to go. So I know as farmers and farm families that we do need to keep our energy up. We do need to keep our muscle mass up and have that strength and mobility and flexibility to do work on the land as well for a long time. It's not like there's early retirements going, I don't think. um, so then also to include some good fats in your diet, eggs, nuts, seeds, avocados, all those natural red meat, they all contain really good oily fish as well, really good fats. Okay, so I said I would pick one thing to be negative about, and I want to talk very quickly about what happens when we have a high sugar diet. Your blood sugars rise instantly. So if you're somebody who is living off sugar and apple tarts and fizzy drinks and chocolate bars and biscuits, and if you're constantly taking them in, there, of course, there is room for sugar. I mean, what's life without a bit of chocolate? But it's the constant living off it for energy. Sugar levels rise instantly, energy levels rise instantly, which is great, but it's really short-lived. And next thing you get, so you'll get hyper, and then you'll get the big slump. So you appear to be erratic. So you're hyper 1 minute, and then you have no energy an hour later. Um, you lack of concentration then because your energy goes so high so quickly, it falls just as quick. And that 3 o'clock slump thing is actually a thing. Because typically people will have had those 11 o'clock breaks, they'll have put in some chocolate and fizzy drinks, etc., with their lunch break. And then you get that 3 o'clock slump, and it is a thing. It's the biggest factor in weight gain. What happens when we don't break down sugar and burn it off is it gets stored as fat, and then it gets stored around, particularly around the tummy area. And so that's the reality of sugar. And sugar is also just as addictive as cocaine, apparently. So they say. I don't know who they are, but that's what kind of it gets thrown around a little bit, that it is really, really addictive. Um, so there's lots of common foods that you will find sugar hidden in, like flavored yogurts and granola, energy drinks, those kind of not or concentrated fruit juices as well, and white breads, white pastas, and they're all containing and alcoholic drinks. They're all containing hidden sugars. Okay, so that's all great, but to simplify nutrition, include fruit and vegetables with every meal and snack, because that means you're including vitamins and minerals with every food and snack you're having as much as you can. Look, you're not always going to hit it. Something with protein with every meal and every snack if possible. Why? Because you're going to build muscle and you're going to feel fuller for longer. So it stops that overeating of sugar and that need for sugar. Trying to have a healthy fat with 3 meals a day. So at least having 3 meals, like Finola said, a good breakfast, good lunch, good dinner, and then your snacks to be on the healthier side, maybe with fruit and natural yogurts and maybe sandwich or chicken sandwich, something like that. Just avoiding all those really sugary things. There's a couple examples as well. If you are going to take a supplement, this is the one that is being widely recommended, especially being from Ireland. We don't get enough sunlight, and that's where we get our vitamin D. We don't make the vitamin D ourselves. We get a very small amount from food, not enough. So between October and March, I would recommend that the whole population, unless they've been recommended otherwise, take a vitamin D. And you can see here why. It's a really silent one. People don't realize that actually a deficiency in vitamin D can lead to all of these symptoms here, where we might think it's something else. So you can see by incorporating, so the weakened immune system, muscle weakness, low energy, fatigue, mood change, like as simple as a deficiency in vitamin D can lead to that. Eating the colours of the rainbow equals vitamins and minerals, and just improving your overall health and well-being and fighting disease essentially. So ask yourself, what can you do to improve your nutrition, and not what I can restrict or cut out. I want you to ask yourself, what can I put into my nutrition? We are living in a society where everything is, what do we cut out? Everything is negative. Like, what would I need to restrict this? I need to cut this out. I would love if we could have just talk about what am I going to add tomorrow? What color of the rainbow am I going to add? Which new vegetable will I bring into my diet this week? And then maybe potentially trying to have around 50 different ingredients into your diet over time. If you only have 10 in your plan, as it stands this week, having 15 next week is going to be improvement. And it's about those small changes. So final word from me. If it flies, walks, swims, or grows from the earth, eat it. And if it's made in a lab, limit it. That would be my final parting piece of advice. Also, just to reflect back on the pillars that we spoke about, if you fix one, another will improve. If you fix your nutrition, your sleep will improve. If you fix your sleep, your exercise will improve because you'll have more energy. And it just leads to that overall sense and feeling of well-being. And it's not about being 100% at everything. It's just about getting a balance so you can feel calm and you can feel balanced. There is a nice well-being wheel and an exercise that you can download off the website as well, and you can kind of reflect yourself and see, where am I at with exercise? Do I need to make any changes, or is there any small improvement I can make? And the ones that you're happy with, brilliant. And the ones that you might want to make a change to, just pick one small goal that's achievable to you. And this can be reassessed then next month, the month after, or next year, depending on how long term your goals are. And with that, I'm going to hand you back to Finola.
Once again, very intriguing. And again, I picked up new tips again, Anne Marie. But the one I might be most challenged is not having a cup of coffee after 2 p.m. I might get that hard to live it, but I do know my father-in-law, who almost lived to be 90. He always, when he'd have his midday lunch, he would never have a cup of tea with it because somebody told him sometime all those years ago, not a great idea. Um, so there's a lot of truth in kind of lifelong experience, I guess, and you validated it there in your presentation. When I saw the shed, and I remember that from our webinars last autumn, I just couldn't but help think of Storm Owen and Storm everything else. And so it's a really good model. But what we'll say to you is, don't allow work to blow you over. Like, just mind yourself, because it's well worth it for your own well-being, but not just for your well-being, but for your family. And I think with a session like this is, there'll be family members watching this, daughters, sons, wives, partners, and so on. Like, even to pick up the points that Anne-Marie has shared with us today, to share them with whoever's in your household, and to get the help. And I think, the idea of finding your comfort zone, you find your comfort zone, and sometimes you can get your comfort zone by sharing, or maybe joining a local group, or getting out there and getting involved, just to give yourself some off farm time. But again, we'll always emphasize that we do understand that farming isn't, like, as we say, a 9 to 5 job. And we talked about, like, in an office, 9 to 5, leave the desk, into the car, into maybe like a traffic queue or whatever. Farming is and can be 24/7. But what we're really saying is, when you have the time and you can make the time, is to look after yourself, isn't it, Anne Marie? Basically, and to pick up on some of these pointers
Yeah,
of this
and thanks
session.
for reiterating that. That's really important. I get it. It's a very different scenario for sure.
Yeah. So next week we'll be picking up on resilience. Next session.
Great.
So thank you
Okay.
very much for such an engaging session, Anne Marie.
Very welcome. Very
Yeah,
delighted to
lovely.
deliver. Okay. Okay, so till next week. Thanks, Finola, and we'll see you again next week.